An uneasy calm returns to Hammanskraal as forced evictions are suspended.
On a day like this, we say no to xenophobia.
Mixed emotions as the continent celebrates Africa Day. A very happy Africa Day to you. I'm Duduzile Ramela. You're watching eNews Direct.
And I'm Sandile Gangose. Good evening.
To comment on any of our stories, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. That's at eNews Direct.
And you can also track our main stories using the following hashtags: Hammanskraal and Africa Day.
Evictions in Hammanskraal have been suspended. The area has been rocked by violent clashes after the Red Ants arrived to evict residents and demolish shacks. 2 people were killed during the confrontation.
These residents say moving to Sikampaneng settlement in Hammanskraal was effortless. 3 months ago, they arrived here to find their shacks already erected. All they had to do was move in with their belongings free of charge, thanks to their community leaders. Their story contradicts that of other residents who insist they paid community leaders 400 rand for a stand. eNCA is in possession of a letter handed over by residents outlining a deal with city officials and signed by the local councillor.
We've got agreements in black and white. We've got a letter, an MOU, Memorandum of Agreement, between us, the community, with the current councillor.
Human Settlements MEC Paul Mashatile says a portion of this land is privately owned while the rest is owned by the municipality. On Monday, the Red Ants demolished shacks here as they were illegally erected.
We have occupied this land legally and peacefully. What is Red Ants coming to do here?
Hostility towards journalists continues to grow. This amid claims that local councillors gave the green light for residents to occupy this private land. With the evictions now on hold, all parties are hoping for peace, while a long-term strategy is being thrashed out. Leranzo Temba, Hammanskraal.
Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has rubbished claims that the ANC uses food parcels to win votes. He says the governing party is committed to the electoral code. Ramaphosa was responding to wide-ranging questions in Parliament today.
MPs accused the ANC of handing out state-funded food parcels to secure votes at election time.
We recently saw the IFP witness how ANC officials and SASO officials, just a day before a by-election, brought in trucks of food parcels, and we've got the photos here. And this is not an isolated incident. In fact, now with every by-election, you will find the same situation.
Something Ramaphosa denies.
The ANC as the governing party has enough experience, has the right policies, and has enough capability to convince people to vote for them rather than through buying them through food parcels.
The Deputy President also touched on his recent trip to Rwanda for the World Economic Forum on Africa. He says fixing Africa's energy woes is seen as a priority.
The map that you will see of Africa in the next few years is going to be a bright lit map, because many of our countries in the African continent are going to be generating energy exponentially.
He added that South Africa is still involved in trying to bring stability to South Sudan, which has been torn apart by civil war.
The confidence levels are rising on an ongoing basis, largely because the leaders of South Sudan realize that they can no longer return back to war, that war is not an option. The only option that exists in South Sudan is peace, and how to consolidate that peace.
Ramaphosa says advancing Africa's interests means advancing the interests of all South Africans. Bonga Dlwane, Parliament.
Willis Mchunu has taken over as Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. Mchunu was sworn in earlier today. He replaces Senzo Mchunu, who stepped down earlier this week. The ANC's provincial structure has been deeply divided over the past few months. Senzo Mchunu was accused of ignoring orders from the top brass. He resigned on Monday, saying he was given an ultimatum. But the party says he was redeployed after a high-level meeting. Now, there have been mixed feelings as Africa Day was celebrated in Gauteng today. It's the commemoration of the founding of the Organization of African Unity, now known as the AU. While the day was filled with color and song, many felt there's nothing to celebrate. They claim bread and butter issues are being ignored.
Let us unite and celebrate together, so says the African Union anthem. And what better way to celebrate than with a parade through the streets of the home of all African nations, Yeoville. The South African Police Band leading the way in true African style, taking many out of work and home. And the Yeoville market was the hub of all things African, for your taste buds or your wardrobe.
African Day is a day of unity. African Day is a day of oneness.
But for some, like this Congolese national, there is nothing to celebrate.
Each and every day, people are killing. People are killed there to Congo. And how can I commemorate this day as our African Day?
The day was also a time for reflection for South Africans. Last year, xenophobia in many areas was rife.
What we are asking is for Africans who chose South Africa as their destination. Africans who perhaps were abused by their own government, who found themselves in South Africa, should not be abused again once here.
Many of them live in fear of the outbreak of xenophobic violence. And even on this day, on a day like this, we say no to xenophobia, and we continue to call on our communities across the province and indeed across the country to ensure that we work together and build social cohesion.
Some South Africans are in agreement.
Xenophobia or xenophobic must stop.
So in the spirit of Africa Day, feel free to embrace and share things from all over the continent. My skirt is South African, top from the DRC, head wrap proudly Ghanaian, darling. All available here at the Yeoville market. Zikhona Tshona, Johannesburg.
A quick look at world news now, and the Afghan Taliban has announced a new leader, acknowledging for the first time that Mullah Akhtar Mansour was killed in a U.S. drone strike. His successor, Maulawi Haibatullah Akhundadza, was one of Mansour's deputies. Under Mansour, the Taliban refused to take part in peace talks, and it's not expected the stance will change. Protests at a Donald Trump rally in the state of New Mexico turned violent today as demonstrators clashed with police. The presumptive Republican presidential nominee wants a wall to be built along the border with Mexico. And Australia's New South Wales government has committed around 25 million rand to solve a bat invasion at a holiday town. Residents of Bateman's Bay say their lives have become a nightmare since the population of so-called flying foxes tripled to reach 100,000. The bats are a vulnerable species and would have to be dispersed using non-lethal means like smoke or noise.
Time now to hand over to Tuluzibe, who has all of your social media.
Indeed I do. Thank you so much, Sandile. And cartoonist Zapiro is being labelled a racist following his depiction of prosecution's boss, Sean Abrahams, as a monkey. In the cartoon, Abrahams is shown as a monkey dancing to a tune played by President Jacob Zuma. However, Zapiro says he never intended to create hurtful images. He says he's confused by the public outrage, as previous cartoons of a similar nature were never criticized to this extent. However, Zapiro says he will review his methods. And we end with this. More than a decade after he was first accused of sexual misconduct, Bill Cosby will go on trial. A Pennsylvania judge has found enough evidence to proceed with a criminal trial. More than 50 women have accused Cosby of sexual misconduct. If convicted, he faces up to 30 years in prison. Remember, we do love to hear from you. You can, of course, check us out on Twitter and Facebook. That's at eNews Direct, or you can head on over to our website. That's eNCA.com/direct. After the break, your business news as well as your weather. Money matters now, and Johannesburg residents will be paying more for their rates and taxes. The city has tabled its budget for the next financial year. Electricity costs will rise almost 7% for residents starting from the 1st of July. Removal services will cost an average 6% more. Property rates will go up by 5.9%. Tariffs for water and sanitation services jump the most by 13.2%. The increases were lower than the National Energy Regulator's recommendations. The city's budget comes in at 45 billion rand with its debt balance at 15 billion. The Reserve Bank says it's constantly working with the country's banks to step up cybersecurity. This after a global syndicate managed to withdraw 300 million rand through fraudulent ATM transactions in Japan. The central bank released its bank supervision report on Wednesday. It has also announced that Deputy Governor Kuben Naidu will take over as the Registrar of Banks.
Local banks grew their assets by over 15% in 2015. Even though the economy has seen tepid growth. With consumers in many sectors under pressure, a secure banking system is paramount.
The system is both safer and sounder and I guess in one sense less profitable, but of course banks play an absolutely critical role in the economy as intermediaries between savers and borrowers, between investors and people who need investment resources.
Standard Bank's recent losses in Japan have highlighted the impact of cybercrime. The bank was the victim of fraud amounting to 300 million rand through fake credit card withdrawals. The Reserve Bank has reassured consumers their money was not taken.
We are working with the banks to ensure that they are constantly upgrading their ability to detect and repel cyber attacks.
Total banking assets now stand at 4.8 trillion rand, with loans and advances amounting to 3.6 trillion for last year. The bank maintains that the local banking sector remains one of the best in the world. Shareholders earned at least 17% on their investment last year alone. Now, despite a change in regulations and an ailing global economy, the SARB is confident that local banks remain safe and sound. Arabile Komete, Johannesburg.
And with that, let's see how the markets performed today. Let's check in with the Weather Centre now. Here's Louis.
Good evening everyone and welcome to the Weather Centre. It was a mostly cloudy day today over KwaZulu-Natal with showers over some parts of the province, while through the central parts of the country it was partly cloudy and a few very isolated thunder showers developed in places from the northwest into the Free State and even around Kimberley in the Northern Cape. A quick look at what you can expect for tomorrow, and KwaZulu-Natal will remain quite cloudy, a few isolated showers possible for the northern parts of the province, while Kokstad in the south will be partly cloudy and dry. It'll be a dry day for the Eastern Cape, sunnier weather expected, and this will help to push the temperatures up into the mid-20s for some areas over the Karoo. The Western Cape's also going to be sunny and dry, a warm day expected for almost all of the province, although Hermanus will be cool with a high of 20. Let's take a look at the Northern Cape now, and not much changing for the province. Cold in the morning, especially for the high ground, but in the afternoon most areas will be getting above 20 degrees Celsius. A cooler day for the Free State. It's going to be partly cloudy. There's a likelihood for a few light showers over the eastern parts, but the probability of that is quite low. And there's also a likelihood for a few isolated showers and thunderstorms from Mahikeng through to Rustenburg, but Vryburg over western parts is going to be a dry day, mostly clear weather expected. Mostly cloudy on the other hand for Limpopo. Cooler weather in the forecast. Showers and thunderstorms possible, especially for the east. And we're also expecting a good chance for a few showers over much of Mpumalanga. And it's going to be a mostly cloudy and cool day for the Highveld in particular. Crossing over into Gauteng, isolated showers, maybe even a few thunderstorms. Cooler weather expected. Johannesburg at 17 and Pretoria won't be getting to 20 either. Let's look ahead to your Friday's weather. And we're expecting things to dry up in the northern parts of the country. Mostly cloudy for Polokwane, where it will be cool once again. And for the start of the weekend, temperatures will be rising for most areas and it will be sunny along the eastern coastline. That's all from the Weather Centre. Goodbye for now.
Thank you, Louis. After the break, a new pop-up coffee shop serves up a unique blend to help combat poverty. A pop-up shop at Cresta Mall in Johannesburg will leave you feeling a bit better about drinking countless cups of coffee.
Yep, all the store's profits are used to feed children in need.
The social project is an initiative to try and address various ills around extreme poverty, and the most obvious one is education, the lack of education in rural areas, impoverished communities, where children are not able to get the level of education that they need.
The social project was founded in 2015. It operates as a non-profit company aimed at eradicating poverty. The pop-up store here in Cresta will be around for a few more days. It'll then head to Durban.
We've created a unique blend of coffee called the Social Blend, which has got its own story behind it as well, with the families and the farms that produce those beans. And the idea is to sell high-quality coffee at the same price that anybody would pay elsewhere, but with the advantage that included in that price, instead of a profit, a meal is provided for a child at a learning centre.
Like this centre out in the Western Cape, where youngsters are taught on tablets. So every time you visit Social Drinks and make a purchase, you get to press this button. Above the store, it will indicate just how many meals the social project has managed to provide for the day. Jody Jacobs, Johannesburg.
A reminder of the day's top stories before we say goodbye. An uneasy calm returns to Hammanskraal as forced evictions are suspended.
On a day like this, we say no to xenophobia.
Mixed emotions as the continent celebrates Africa Day. And that's a wrap from the eNews Direct team.
There's indeed Rhythm City's up next.
To share your views, you can send us an email to enewsdirect@etv.co.za.
You can, of course, just talk to us on Twitter and Facebook, and our handle is @eNewsDirect.
Until tomorrow night, have a fantastic evening. Bye-bye.